You're listening to Behind the Red Shield, a podcast produced by the Salvation Army of Memphis and the Mid-South. I'm your host, Camille Connor. The purpose of this podcast is to go behind the scenes and hear from the people doing the daily work to achieve the Salvation Army's mission, which is to meet human needs in His name without discrimination. In this episode, I talk with Sharon Cash, the Executive Director of Social Services at the Salvation Army of Memphis. We discuss how she got started at the Salvation Army and the work she's done to help women and children facing poverty and homelessness throughout her 21 years with the Salvation Army. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Behind the Red Shield podcast. I am joined today with our Director of Social Services, Sharon Cash. Thanks for joining us today. And we have a lot to talk about, and we only have a little bit of time, but I want to dive into, of course, the work that social services does, but also the purpose of this podcast is to not just highlight what the Salvation Army does, but also the people that make our mission happen. So I think it will be really valuable if our listeners can, hear your story as well as the work that you do here at the Salvation Army. And months ago when I first started, I got a chance to sit down with you in your office to hear about how you came to be at the Salvation Army and all the work you've done. And what is it, 21 years since you've been here, right?
21 years.
And you're about to retire, and we're going to miss you so much. But I think it would just be great if people could learn more about what brought you to the Salvation Army. So can you tell us a little bit about what led you here 21 years ago?
I think that the best way to describe it is it was the next place that I was assigned to in a universal way, if that makes sense. I've been in the field for over 30 years, and I had made a decision that I was going to pursue my master's at that time, and I worked for Methodist, and they were discontinuing their behavioral health component, not necessarily discontinuing, but allowing another agency to come in and to head that. And it was not a agency that I desired to work for. And a friend of mine was responsible or a part of writing the program that is now what we call Renewal Place. And she called me and asked me to come and apply. She had told me before the program even manifested that she knew where I was supposed to be next. And so a year plus from that time, we had that discussion to me actually coming to do an application. She called me back. It was one conversation. I found the next place you're supposed to be. A year later, she called me and said, come and apply. And so I came and applied, came back for the interview, and the director at that time who was doing the hiring actually forgot she had given me an evening appointment for an interview. Long story short, she walked out the back door to get in her car, remembered that she left something, came back through the front door. That's where I was, and we interviewed that day, and she virtually told me that night that I was going to be hired. So my desire to work with women has always been there. I worked for a program called Baby Love, and saw the anguish, the disproportionate amount of services provided to women that had issues with mental health and that had children. So it was already in my heart. So it was a perfect match when I got here.
Yeah. And something I remember you saying, like when we talked in your office, was that like women need to see other women who have, been through similar circumstances and seen success. What does that really mean to you? Can you expound on that?
Well, I'm a product of saying that women do recover. I have been sober in recovery for 31 years. And it was 31 years ago, you didn't see anyone even willing to share openly that they were in recovery or seeking sobriety. So it's very important that women see that you can begin again. And I am one of those that represents that you can begin again, no matter how far you've fallen or what your situation is. There is a reset button. And for me, beginning again didn't really mean going back to something that was already there, but a newness that could only happen with beginning again, starting from where I am, and allowing just all new information, all new love, all new goals to be the foundation to move from.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, since you're the director of social services, for people who don't know, what are the services that the Purdue Center of Hope, our women's shelter, what services do we provide here?
Here, we offer 4 different programs, and even then, so much more than that. We have a long term program, which is the Renewal Place program, that falls up under transitional housing. Women that openly, that on the front end, know the reason that they're not housed is because of their issues with drug addiction. And we're the largest provider of services for women that have children, that the children come into the program with them 17 and under. We don't put a cap on how many children can come in that long-term program, and they can be with us up to 2 years. Our emergency family shelter program can be 1 day up to 90 days, and that program is for women with children. That's our other family program, and they can come in with their children in an emergency situation, again, anywhere from 1 day to 90 days. If during their time the barriers to them being able to become independently housed are greater than the 90 days, then at that time they can go into our Pathway of Hope program, which would allow them to be on site for a year. Then we have a single women lodge, and this is women unaccompanied by children. And the same thing, that it is a hybrid program as well. It can be emergency from 1 day to 90 days, and in that time, if it looks like the barriers to independent living are going to take longer, that woman can be assessed to be in our longer term program there for up to 6 months. We are CARF accredited, and since we have a CARF accredited intensive outpatient program, and of course in that it is a co-occurring disorder program, so we are able to address on site for all the women that come in, but also for women that are seeking outside of our programs, that are looking for ambulatory treatment for addiction, mental health issues, and other living things that impact their ability to be appropriately housed. In the building, we have a youth development department that is amazing. That is, I think, the level of care and what is addressed in our youth development department with case managers for our children surpasses most environments that have something similar to what we do. So, and we are a total support program. Insurance is not required. Funding is not required on the front end. A desire to have opportunity to really change your life is the only thing that is needed when you show up. We take referrals from word of mouth, other agencies. We partner with several agencies in the community, and we're just grateful that we are in the community. Our reputation is superb, and we don't take that for granted.
Yeah. Can you talk about some of the classes and services that women in our shelter go through, particularly when we're talking about some women who come to our shelter have experienced domestic violence or are fleeing domestic violence? And so how are the ways that we address that trauma in the women living here, as well as their children as well?
Well, we on site we offer the domestic violence classes, but within our intensive outpatient program, even being able to get there, we do trauma informed care. We do alcohol and drug counseling, mental health counseling, domestic violence counseling by credentialed staff to be able to do that. But each woman has a case manager that can do one-on-one with her to begin to explore and just see what is needed beyond us. And so we utilize professionals in the community, as well as offering her a safe place to be. We are not considered a safe house, but we are an environment that we are very protective of our population and understand the issues that are related to domestic violence. So it is a priority when women come in. We provide them with professional care to address the mental health impact, the emotional impact, and the traumatic impact of being in a domestic violence situation. And the same care that we give mom, we do that with her children. They receive counseling, they receive therapy. They are in group as well based on their age. But one of the things that we know for sure, that if we can provide them time and a safe environment, that some of the impact of what happened in that situation can be minimized in some area, but understanding that it's a long-term opportunity. So it's imperative that we make sure that they are connected with resources other than here, because it does take more than that. But for her to be able to be safe enough to get some rest, to love on her children, for her children to know that she's going to come home, that she's going to be safe, that's half of what is needed for someone to begin to heal from that type of trauma.
Yeah. And I want to circle back to you saying, providing resources beyond here, because I definitely want to talk about that in a moment. But you mentioned how important it is to provide time. Can you talk more about how crucial it is to provide time for these women and children and who are experiencing homelessness or battling addiction? Why is it so important to give them that time of up to 2 years if need be? Mm-hmm. Can you talk more about that?
Well, one of the things that we know specifically for the children, personality, character is pretty much developed in the first 3 to 5 years of life. So when you have moms to come in and children that time, if you can give them 2 years of safety, of not being hungry, fear is diminished, an appropriate touch, okay, it changes the trajectory of their lives. And so when we can offer that to mom as well, when you look at all the research that has been done on adverse childhood experiences and issues, matters of the heart, what makes the difference is not a pill or a shot. It's appropriate social support. It's time, and it is allowing them an opportunity to learn what is needed for them to be able to take care of their heart and their mind. And so those are some of the tools that we're able to offer. One of the things that is, I just truly believe that the Salvation Army does better than in most environments that offer social services, is that there is an understanding of time and the importance of allowing someone the opportunity to begin to heal and to be supported. When they have no knowledge of that, being homeless is one of the most traumatic situations that there are. And so early on, it was understood when this building was open, to be able to offer women an opportunity to heal, to change what has happened, to address what moving forward is needed, what is needed to move forward. On the front end, it was time. Time makes a difference. One of the greatest tragedies to homelessness and being able to begin again is being told that you have to do that in 30, 60, or 90 days. And so it's a setup for failure, in the sense that if I don't get it together, if my mind is not ready, if there's still a whole lot of fear and it has not been addressed, I don't know what the resources is, but I'm told that you're homeless and I'm going to give you a house in 90 days or less, so you ought to be all right. And I don't have the tools to even know how to be all right. I don't know how to rest. I don't have the skill set to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that, or you can't do that to me. I haven't truly understood what integrity is, and I got 3 children that are looking to me. So it is a very fragile situation that is best addressed with time to heal, supported in that time to heal, and resources beyond having an opportunity to know that I'm healing. It doesn't all happen here, but we understand what laying a foundation for healing looks like for women and children.
we'd like to take a brief moment to tell our listeners about our annual Red Kettle Kickoff concert. This year's concert will be on November 13th at 5 p.m. at the Kroc Community Center. Join us as we launch our Red Kettle campaign to raise funds for families in need. Get into the holiday spirit with musical performances from Stax Music Academy and experience the work of award-winning speed painter Jessica Haas as she creates an original piece live. Guests will also be welcome to refreshments following the concert, and they'll get a chance to bid on Jessica Haas's paintings. Guests are also encouraged to bring a new toy with them that will go towards our Angel Tree program, which provides gifts for hardworking families facing financial hardships. You can find more info and RSVP to our Red Kettle Kickoff concert at salvationarmymemphis.org. Let's get back to the episode. A few months ago, we held our women's auxiliary luncheon in the spring, and you talked about a story that, had a big impact on how you guys continue that connection with women who have lived in our shelter and then transitioned outside of our shelter. Could you talk about that story of a woman who came to our shelter and then transitioned, and it brought attention to that need to give women the tools of how to live on their own if they haven't been able to live on their own before?
I'm sure you're speaking of sharing one of the greatest lessons that we learned here, and when we really fully understood better that we have to be vigilant and mindful of not doing cookie cutter services, but being able to provide what the woman in front of you needs. And this particular young lady would be considered to be chronically homeless, and she had been into our program maybe 2 or 3 times and left. This time she came, got into our outpatient program, was doing amazingly well. One of the stories that she shared in a group that I facilitated in was basically how much she loved her mother, that when her mother became ill and was in the hospital, that she moved from the place that she was sleeping outdoors in to under a bridge that was closer to the hospital so she could see her mother every day. And so that just speaks to how she had learned to live on the streets. She became eligible for housing, and we supported her into moving into her own apartment. She had not been there 2 weeks when we were all floored when we got the word that she had been murdered in her apartment. And what we found out later as we communicated, even though she would come back during the day to the groups, she never mentioned that she could not sleep at night. And what we learned was that she didn't know how to be in the house, and people observed her sitting on the stoop in front of her door with her door open all during the night. And we learned later that may have been what happened, how someone got into her house to take her life. From that, what we had not thought about, and that was that we didn't give her tools on how to be in a house. We didn't support her on what needs to happen. We didn't say that when you're in the house you have to keep your door shut. There were just assumptions that we made. And so from her, the gift she gave us is to make sure that we're listening, that we're paying attention, that we don't make any assumptions, and that we provide them with the tools that they need to be able to move. And what we do understand is that some may need not to go straight into the house. They may need more time to be able to adjust. She was used to living communally because wherever she slept there was a community. She had never lived in an apartment. She had been diagnosed as a schizophrenic when she was maybe 16 or 17 years old, but ran away from home and never ever having an opportunity to live independently. So we know in a very harsh reality is that we have to understand to meet them where they are and to do our best opportunity to connect them with their resources. That young lady would have better possibly been served to have been a part of a group home or a communal environment because she was very successful in living in our dormitory style home here. And so we know some things better now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned harsh realities, and everyone comes in with their own unique story. And unfortunately, the reality is not everybody's story ends in success. However, one thing I do remember you telling me too before was that being here and working with these women is a place where you can see miracles on a daily basis.
Yes.
Can you talk more about those miracles that you've seen over the last 21 years?
What I know for sure is that our responsibility is to be found faithful to walking out, talking out, that we are a resource, but always living out that God is their source. Because of that, everybody doesn't get a graduation or an apartment, but to see on a daily basis children that get off the school bus and to come in so grateful, like they're coming home with a whole lot of joy that was not present when they first got here. I've been very fortunate to see women to come in hopeless, putting their children up for adoption, and changing their mind while they're here. Having one mom come in and had given her child, had left her daughter at the hospital that she had delivered 3 days prior to coming into the program with her other children. And in the state of Tennessee, if you go back and get the baby 30 days or less, there's not a legal issue attached. And we were very fortunate to be able to go get the baby on the 29th day, and she named her Grace. And that particular mom is now a doctor. She's obtained her PhD, and she is working as an educator in the city. To see moms here to come into the program to do well and have their mothers be able to tell us that the best thing that ever happened was their child coming into the program, and to tell us that on her deathbed, and to see that daughter be able to have some integrity, some dignity, to be able to say that one of the things that I'm most grateful for is to have been sober when my mom transitioned to heaven. To see children, oh my God, to come back and tell us that they're so grateful that their moms came into the program. And so as many miracles that we saw, I think as amazing as that is, to have the miracles that happened that we didn't know of, to have women to transition to heaven, but then to learn from their families that the best that they were when they were in the program. And again, I mean, just being here this morning and having the weekend and knowing that everything happened in the building over the weekend, but then to see moms come downstairs smiling on their way to group, and just being able to stop by my office and say, I feel so much better. I slept better than I ever have before. We have women that come in and are unable to make their beds. And rather than have that be an issue, understanding that for some of them, they never had a bed to make before. And to see that accomplishment, to come and have somebody in the hallway saying, come look at my room, I want you to see, and just being able to take ownership of that. So It's just, again, what we offer is simply that we believe that you can begin again. And if I don't have anything else other than a hug and a warm smile, um, and kind words, we know that that's sufficient to touch someone's heart.
Amen. I do want to ask one question as we're nearing the end of our time. Uh, like I said, you're leaving soon, and we're definitely gonna miss you. But what's one thing that you hope people learn about the Salvation Army that you feel they may not know about?
Salvation Army, because most of the time when you mention that you work for the Salvation Army or affiliated with the Salvation Army, someone is going to say, you know what, I got some clothes that I was going to bring down there. But it's so much more than I think that can be put into words. But Salvation Army is the place that's going to show up. It's the environment that will offer an opportunity for man or woman, because we have the Adult Rehabilitation Center for men, um, a chance to rest, and that it has become an environment of empathy and not sympathy, but operates from a place that you don't have to come back here again, because we're going to support you and give you all the tools that you need to be able to keep moving forward. But we show up. We stay longer than anybody else. We try harder than any other environment, and I think that's what makes a difference. And that I would like that to be part of the legacy that I leave with the Salvation Army, and that is time makes a difference. A kind word is better than any medicine that science can give, and that hope never fails.
And you are going to be leaving quite the legacy. And I mean, we have so many incredible, passionate, hardworking caseworkers that have been able to learn from your wisdom and experience. So we are in good hands. But I just want to thank you for all of the work that you've done, and all of the, tidbits of wisdom that you've even laid on me in just the last few months. So thank you so much for all of the work you've done for the Salvation Army over the last 21 years.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for even having me here today. I appreciate it.
Of course. That wraps up our first episode of Behind the Red Shield. If you'd like to learn more about the Salvation Army of Memphis and the Mid-South, you can head to our website at salvationarmymemphis.org. There, you'll also find ways to get involved. We have several volunteer opportunities this holiday season, and you can sign up to be an Angel Tree volunteer or a bell ringer for our Red Kettle campaign. All the info is on our volunteer page. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Salvation Army Memphis. Don't forget to join us next week for a brand new episode. You can find it by subscribing to our Salvation Army Memphis YouTube page or subscribing to Behind the Red Shield on iTunes Podcast or Spotify. Thanks for listening.